So welcome to this talk, this exploration talk from Althusser Rossiter and myself. Um, we're talking about awakening today because we know many people out there are waking up into a new reality. And we just want to share ideas with you, no formal talk, but just an informal exploration of what is awakening and what do we feel awakening is all about, and see if we can give you some tools or some ideas or insights or some deepening on the theme of awakening. So, hi, Althusser.
Hi, Robert. Good to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you again. So we go back about 10 years now.
We do.
And 10 years ago, we met in the Netherlands, in Zwolle, where you were there for some training, and basically fell in love and started our journey together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a fair description. Yes.
It is, yeah. No, and ever since, I mean, you are my teacher, and I've learned a lot from you about spiritual intelligence and about transformation and about working with divine intelligence. And we have loads of talks together. We meet once a month, and in these thoughts, at one point we thought, hey, we need to share this, just this talking and exploration of our viewpoints and our insights and the way, because it's valuable for other people to be a part of it. And yeah, that's basically what we said. And so we always have a lot of fun, and but also a lot of new insights come out of these talks. And let's just kick off. Let's just kick off because we're talking about awakening. And you want to start? What is awakening? What does it mean to you?
Where to start? Well, I think awakening for me was having a realization that there was more to the world, more to life, and more to my own existence than I had up until a particular point realized. It's like I was very caught up in the material world and not very happy with it. And I was starting to ask my own internal questions, and at some point, and we might get to talk about this experience because it was quite profound, I just had this sudden, almost a spontaneous switch on. It was like, for me, my energy woke up, like my body was buzzing and tingling, and I didn't know what to do with it, but I knew that there wasn't anything really wrong with me. So it wasn't about going to the hospital, it was about, there is something happening here. I need to find out about it. But, I think the driver for it, which was like a kind of spontaneous thing, was, this complete total dissatisfaction with myself and the life that I was living. I didn't like me, I didn't like my life. And it was that was pushing me to actually find a different way of existing.
Yeah, for me, same. I remember I had a thought one day, I want more magic in my life. And the next thing I know, I was kicked out of my job. My wife left me. And a lot of space was made for that magic. And I must say, I have a lot of magic going on in my life now. But there is a pressure point. Some people have burnout. Some people have bad experiences. Some people have psychic mental problems, there's always a pressure, a point of too much pressure, and then it opens up. Then there is a point of initiation. What was your initiation? What was the first like oneness experience, or the first real opening?
Well, if I just rewind a little bit and go back saying, like, yes, I was very pissed off with myself and and the life I was leading. I got to the point where, pretty much similar to you, wife left me, job collapsed. It's like that's kind of the first thing. But then I started to rebuild myself, and I found, because I knew I was stressed out, I went and found a course, just like, well, not quite like the courses that you and I give now, because we're kind of not working at that, well, I'm not anyway, at that real fundamental waking up level, not immediately anyway. But I found a course which was just about burnout, but it was, it was like the real baby steps. And, it was an evening course, evening class, 6 or 10 weeks, I can't remember now. And, we did a bit of psychodrama, a bit of transactional analysis, a little bit of massage. That was a real stretch. We had to take our shoes off and let people touch our feet, And as you know now, I walk around barefoot all the time, as I think you do. But that was such a stretch for me at that point, and because I was so tight.
But there was a point of initiation. I remember you telling me about the church. Where
that's where I'm going. In that 10-week course, I learned a meditation practice which is called Metta Bhavana. It's a Buddhist practice, and that wasn't the initiation. That was like the exercise that got me to the initiation.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I took to it like, well, it was like this or jump off the roof. So I had to do, I had to do something, and I chose not to jump off the roof. And I did this meditation. I still do it, and I teach it now as part of my, my own courses. And a few years later, probably 3 or 4 years later, I met a lady, a new partner, and she was also in a kind of waking up process, and she had been in touch with the Catholic Church because that's how she'd been brought up. But she'd also found that there are some renegades in the Catholic Church. We know there's some real bandits, but there are some renegades, some real, some very special people, just like there are in all realms of life, And there was one priest who's no longer with us, a Monsignor, who used to do healing in the church, and he was like an itinerant. He would have a roving commission, and not many churches would actually have him because he was, off the edge. He wasn't really, he wasn't following the party line. And I got taken, along to this. Basically, just out of curiosity and interest, and because this was a new relationship, and I wanted to please the lady as much as anything else. And so we went to this meeting, this mass, and I got a big shock because, first of all, it was like a shopping mall on the first day of the summer sales. You couldn't move. There it was just packed. And I thought, what all these people want to come to church for? You know, I knew I was there. I was, I had another motive inside here. Like I'm gonna be liked by this lady, and she's gonna.
Yeah, you were there for her, not for yourself.
Yeah, I was there for her, and
yeah,
and that's all. But then when I was in the church, and we got sat down, something told me that there was, a real depth of sincerity in the church, and I either had to respect that or get up and leave. So I chose to respect it, but because I'm not brought up as a Catholic, and I wasn't going to pretend, I sat and did my Buddhist metabhavana meditation. And I did that. But what I didn't know was that the priest was going to say Mass, and then he was going to go around the church, with probably about 1,000 people, and anoint everybody, hug them and bless them for healing. And that took 3 hours. So I got my turn as well. But all that time, I was in that meditation process, and I'd only been doing it, like 20 minutes a day, like we all do, to start with. And in that process, that was when my energy system switched on. That was the initiation. It was like someone has suddenly plugged me in, and my hands were burning, my body was tingling, and it stayed with me for 3 days. I didn't know what to do about it. Except I was thinking, well, I had two thoughts. The first was, wow, this is brilliant. There really is something, something beyond this rubbish of the world that we keep getting fed by the media, and, the kind of slave mentality of, going to work and, paying the bills and the mortgage and those kind of things. And then the second thought was, and this was interesting because it was very much connecting with, we're going to talk about multidimensionality. So I'm going to call it a multidimensional aspect of me. And it was like, oh no, not this again. And it was like some part of me was remembering that I've done it before.
Yeah.
And had the experience before.
Yeah, I recognize it, which makes complete sense because metta is a Pali, the old Buddhist language, Pali word for universal love. Bhavana means meditation, so but it also means cultivation, and it's also Pali word. So basically, metta bhavana is the cultivation of universal love.
Yes.
So you spend 3 hours, in universal church with the healing. Yeah, it's a good place. So these light forces around you can. There he is. The guy, he's ready.
Probably it's him. Yeah, him. That one.
Yeah. Let's take that one. Yeah. For me, it was a slightly different. I was practicing vipassana bhavana. It's my vipassana teacher Dingaman Boot.
Yeah.
And you've met him in Zwolle. And I was in one of his retreats. I was practicing vipassana, and it was a nature retreat. So I was on an island on a sand dune, overseeing the ocean, and I was sitting there practicing the meditation, and suddenly a little voice said, "Stand up." So I stood up, and then the voice said, "Okay, fall backwards." So I looked backwards to see if it was safe to fall, and then the voice said, "No, fall backwards." And I said, "Okay, surrender." Okay. So I let myself fall backwards, and I was in the sand, and suddenly I realized, hey, I'm not this body. I'm not this breathing. I'm not these thoughts. I'm not these feelings. I'm not. And I stepped out of the body, and I had an experience that is that people have when they have these near-death experiences, where completely one with everything. You seem to understand everything.
Mhm.
You have a clear view of the whole universe, and you go beyond time and space and energy, and everything was just. At that point, I got it, and then I remember one thought. I thought, oh, am I? Because I don't know. At one point, I sat up and I was sitting there, and I don't know how long the experience was. But I remember the first thought coming in was, am I able to love Monique this way, in the state that I was? And that thought brought me back into my body.
Mhm.
And I forgot 99% of the experience,
Yes.
but the 1% is the basis of everything that I do today. And I've written 6 books about it, and all the courses and trainings. And it was the initiation, and I believe everyone has an initiation,
Yeah.
no matter to what extent.
Of some kind. Yeah.
Called.
Yeah. Did you tell anybody about it?
At that point.
Yes. Because
Yeah, I
I
told
did. I kept it secret for about a week. It's like, Jesus, I'm going mad. I'm not going to tell anybody.
No, I did. I told it. I told Dingeman, who wasn't impressed at all, because I mean, Buddhist monks have these experiences for breakfast. Oh, you had a oneness experience. Oh, yeah, cool, yeah. that's
Yes.
right. And it's true. I spent some time in monasteries, as you know, later on, and I've met many people who've had many of those experiences in their practice. But no, I did tell him, and I mean, I wrote it in 2 books, so yeah, I'm not quite shy about it. No.
Yeah. Well, I'm not
But
sure.
it took you a week.
But I was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, no, I share it now because it was a fabulous experience. But when it happened, it was like, well, I can't tell anybody about this.
Yeah, and we're being called back to who we were. We remember. My God, my dog is coming in. He's been outside, playing in the field, and he's full of horse shit. We have a couple of horses here, as you know. It
Yes.
smells terrible.
Oh, good. Has he been rolling in it?
Oh yeah, he's like completely covered.
Yeah, some dogs love it.
I used to have a white dog. I have a black dog now.
Yeah.
That's his initiation. So no, and I like what you said about remembering, because we remember when we have an initiation, we start to remember we did this before, right? Most of us light workers, we've done this. We've played this game many times in many different lives, as monks, as shamans, as witches, as
Absolutely.
give it a name.
Nuns, all kinds of things. Yes, wise women, wise men. Because we've incarnated as in both genders. I've had past life memories now of being in a female body as well as a male. So we've done these things many times, and there are a lot of us here now, an awful lot of us.
Yeah.
And some are like you and I, working to bring others to help them wake up, and some are still struggling with the awakening process. But there are a lot of us here now.
Yeah, and for a reason, because we are in a huge shift. Right? Mankind is in this huge shift from fear to love, from in the Hinduist yugas they call it from Kali, the ages of darkness, to Dwapara, the ages of energy, from fishes to Aquarius.
Yeah.
There's a huge shift going on out there.
Yeah, we've just come round the turning point of the yugas, haven't we? That was round about 2012. I mean, the precise timing of it is a little bit vague, because it's dependent on many variables in the universe. But basically it's this kind of 26,000 year cycle, and we've come round the very bottom part of it, which is the Kali Yuga, and we're just coming out of that. And you know, another way of saying it is we're coming out of the age of Pisces into Aquarius. You know, so we're kind of moving around that precession of the equinoxes.
Yeah, and no matter where you look, all the prophecies in all these different cultures, they all are telling this story, right? This is the time of ascension of mankind.
Yeah.
And it was, if we go back into, I've been studying some of the work of Gregg Braden. You know Gregg Braden?
Yes, I do.
You like Gregg Braden?
Yes and no. I first came across Gregg Braden about almost 30 years ago. And, you know, I think he's a very wise person, and, you know, he brings through some really interesting and, you know, splendid information. What really pisses me off is he drip feeds it. So he drip feeds it. It's a drip feed, drip, you know, drip feed, you know. so it's like I read his books, and I've got to read 300 pages to get one piece of information.
Yeah, that's true. That's what he does. He tells a lot, and then in a minute I'm coming to this, and then blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
And then in a minute,
So yes, I respect him, but that aspect, you know, is like, this is a drip feed. You know, there's I'm going to tell you in a moment on the next page. I'm going to tell you on the next page. I'm going to tell you on the next page.
No, but but Greg, because we will be talking. We have six talks together like this in this Shift Your Reality series, and we'll be talking about the origin of mankind and the stories about the Anunnaki and others in later episodes. But what I found interesting of what he said was he was showing. It was on Gaia. It was a seminar he was giving, and he was showing scientific, because he's also a scientist, and he was showing scientific proof of the existence of modern man 200,000 years ago. And he said scientists have pinpointed 200,000 years ago there was this gap, Homo erectus, modern man. And if you put modern man from 200,000 years ago under a scanner, and you do the same with us, nothing has changed. Brain capacity, nerve system, it's the same. And he said 200,000 years ago, scientists also found, because we have 22 chromosomes in our DNA, am I right? 22? Yeah. And he said 2 of those chromosomes shifted.
Yes. Yeah.
22. Well, we'll look it up. 22. And 2 of those chromosomes shifted. The 7th chromosome of the human DNA shifted 200,000 years ago. It gave us speech, and it gave us the ability to sing and complex sounds. And the most interesting one was the 2nd chromosome, because it was engineered. There were 2 chromosomes put together. You could see the telomeres, who are normally on the outside, they were on the inside. They were put together, and the 2nd chromosome gives us the human brain, the neocortex, and with all the capacity that it has. And basically, we'll be talking about human engineering also in a later talk. But basically, the awakening that we are all going through, the increase of vibration, the opening to who we really are, we are going back to the way we were engineered in the first place 200,000 years ago, and to who engineered us and for what reason.
Yes. Yeah. And part of that engineering process, and you know, it feels to me like we've jumped forward in the general scheme of the talks that we were planning, but that engineering was, you know, it's kind of flagged in a number of places, but it's like the certain things had to be, you know, certain abilities had to be left intact, could not be shut down, or we could not have fulfilled the purpose that we were engineered for. So it was like, you know, the door to consciousness and higher consciousness had to be left open to enable us to actually fulfill the role that we've actually been created for as, you know, kind of workers and that kind of thing. Because if that hadn't been left open, we would not have been able to be controlled so easily, and we would have, you know, we wouldn't be as we are. So it's like that gate of consciousness had to be left open, and that's essentially the gate that takes us all the way back to what I like to call the Pleroma of Original Source, you know, the source of all being. It's the source of everything, and that's, you know, and that's our direct line to the divine presence that you know, it infuses all of us.
And that what is basically what happens when an awakening occurs. You're being initiated back in alignment with the original source, and you start to understand you're being controlled. And it starts with simple things, right? You start to meditate, and you start to do some yoga, and you start to suddenly you find out about where your meat is coming from, and most of us stop eating meat, for example. You stop watching the news because you start to understand this is not good for my well-being, for my mind. I'm being fed stuff that is not okay. So people drop their televisions, they stop reading newspapers, and people start to discover, hey, I'm not happy in my job. You know, this is not where I'm supposed to be. There's something, they have that inner calling that says, hey, there's something else outside for you to do.
Yes.
And then this whole transformational process starts of basically cleaning up and disconnecting from what we call the matrix that is controlling us, because that's basically what it is, right? You're awakening from the matrix. How do you see that?
Yeah, and the matrix, you know, has many layers as well. But yes, you're initially awakening from all the programming that you've been loaded with, you know, from, you know, more or less, even before you were born, actually, because, you know, at the point of conception, you know, the energy of your parents, you know, is already locked in, and you're carrying stuff from your mother, because you're part of your mother's body for 9 months, and then you know, so everything she feels, you feel without any cognitive or reasoning ability to deal with it. So you're getting all kinds of programming come in, and interpretations that are just energetic, and they become quite difficult to access. You know, it's like, because they're energetic, you can only access them energetically. You can't access them intellectually, you know, although we can intellectualize about them. But you've got to find a way of saying, okay, we need to work with the energy to, you know, bring that all into balance. And so that's, again, part of the initiation process. And it's like it's winding all of that back. And then we start to become more aware of what we might be carrying from our ancestors, because our ancestors, you know, we're on a long, you know, biological line from our creators, you know, from that engineering, you know, you know, That's another aspect of it. And also from where our souls will have incarnated into various biological lines. So, we are this, it's like it's all funneled into the existence that we are in now. And we're starting to clear that because we're becoming aware of it. And that's what the awakening is. The more of us that do that, this, I think, the more that energy of awakening becomes widespread, so other people tune into it, and it just gets bigger and bigger, and it changes the reality.
Yeah, it completely changed reality. Yeah. In Buddhism, they call the matrix or the illusion the seven veils, if that's the correct English word, the seven veils of Maya.
Yeah,
the seven veils of the illusion. You are being fooled. You are being programmed into a life that is not true, because it's not about eating, sleeping, entertainment, and work, and having your pleasures. There's a whole different purpose for us to be here.
Oh no, really? It's not about pleasure. It's not about eating. It's not.
I know this is new for you, and it's a big thing.
Yeah, but no, you're absolutely right. I'm joking. It's like, but it's like, when this is the interesting thing. See, when we're in that place where we are focused on survival, we're focused on eating, we're focused on pleasure, we're focused on work and paying the bills, all the regular mainstream stuff. Then, to tell us that all of that's going to fall away, and that's not what life's about. We're at a level of consciousness that can't accept that. And so, when those things do fall away, it's more of an organic practice and process. So it's like, you as you wake up, you find that, you don't want to read the newspaper anymore. It's not even, the newspaper is rubbish, I mustn't read it. It's like, I don't want to read it anymore. Your consciousness starts to change. And so you don't want to read the newspaper. You don't want to watch the TV. You don't want to go to violent movies. So those kind of things start to happen organically, but it comes with the decision first of all, and I think this is very important. And I'm just going to bring us back to to ground zero in the awakening process, because one of the main things that I think, it's a way that I've understood it, is you have to decide that you're going to follow the new path. Once you get that awakening, you still have a choice to say, oh no, bugger that, I'm going to carry on doing things the way I used to because I like it, or because I'm afraid, because I don't know where any of that's going to go. That's all, that's all woo woo for the fairies. I don't want to go there. So you can stay in your old ways, but it becomes more and more painful to do so, more and more difficult, emotionally, mentally, and sometimes physically, because, that awakening process that we talked about earlier, sometimes it's a physical illness, some kind of, or, an accident which leaves you disabled or something, and it makes you really,
or an illness, yes,
review your life and what your life is about. So you still have the choice. So, but once you decide that you're going to explore, then these things start to happen organically. You find teachers, you find courses, you find, that was me. I kind of decided I didn't want to be like I was, and I found the course. You didn't want to be like you were, and you found your way.
Yes,
to things that suited you. And of course, we all find our way to some things that don't suit us.
Yeah, and the good thing is, so that comes out of this talk now is people think they are making conscious choices, right? To go and meditate and to stop watching television or news or consuming alcohol or all those kinds of things. But they are not conscious choices in themselves. They are part of the awakening process, because you will have to drop anything that vibrates on a low frequency in order to. In the end, there is no high or low, but it's a matter of figure of speech. But you have to drop the low frequency stuff in order to increase your frequency and increase your level of consciousness. And in order to do so, you intuitively feel what is what is helping that process and what is stopping it. And one of those things is also people you hang out with.
Yes.
Because one of the things most of us feel, suddenly an old friend or a brother, sister, or a coworker that used to be so close, suddenly you feel this gap, and it just doesn't match anymore because the frequencies are different. And you have to release people who are negative, or people who are draining your energy, or people who are putting your frequency down. It's not a deliberate choice. You have to, otherwise the progress stagnates.
Yeah, and it's it's very easy to, because this again is part of our own evolutionary process, and I speak for myself. It's very easy for me. It was very easy for me to judge all those people and say, "Oh yeah, they're getting it wrong. They're not as spiritual as me." Instead of recognizing that they're just stuck, they're doing the best they can, and that might be their purpose. And their purpose might even be to stay stuck, so that I can see the stuckness and say, well, no, I don't want to be there anymore. I want to get away from that, So, and it's very easy to judge all that instead of see it as part of the bigger picture. And as you say, particularly with families, I think, suddenly, we just can't tolerate the presence of our family, our brother, our father, or, sister, whoever it is, because they're always on our case, they're always judging us and projecting their particular version of reality onto us, and we can't handle it anymore.
So we have to release this. Do you have any friends left?
I've got you.
No, that's enough. That's enough. Yeah. Don't look for any more. No, and because the other side is there's three interesting points in here. There's the letting go of people who lower your frequency. Not necessarily people who are on a different frequency, but if they infect yours.
Yeah.
The second one is don't judge others, and don't think you are far. All these people. I used to do that in the beginning. When you just wake up and you know everything, you think you know everything. You start to also on the internet. You start to post comments everywhere, like, no, it's like this, and no, you're not right, and no, it's. And, if you see people like that on the internet, and I know, but I just want to share it. If you see people on the internet commenting on anything and pushing their reality and pushing their truth, if you have to convince another person so much, you're basically convincing yourself. So they're in the process, but not convinced yet.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's very important not to judge people who get stuck, not to judge people who go too fast, or not to judge people who think there are places where they are not. And the third one is, you will meet new people, like we met. I didn't know you before. You did well, not in this life. You start to meet new people who are who feel like family, like very old friends, and
Yes.
and that, I think that's a very important aspect to it.
It is. It's very important because you know, as you say, it's like family, and it's like you're choosing your identity and you're choosing your reality. And there was a you know, I like science fiction movies, as you know. I like the Star Wars thing, you know, the Jedi Knight, the lightsaber, because you know, it's just fantastic. And there's a lot of good spiritual principles in those movies. The last one, there was the hero was a heroine, was a lady, and she was she was descended from the emperor, you know, but she saw the emperor, the dark side emperor was Darth Sidious. You know, she saw him, and he was saying, you know, you can't ignore your genes. You can't ignore your DNA. It's gonna, you know, it's got to come through. You're one of us. You're the dark side. And she was saying, no, I choose my own reality, and I choose the light. And she was choosing not to go down a particular path that had been carved out for her, and that, you know, and that was her ancestral line. You know, so really, this is very important that we choose our family, we choose our identity, and the family that we interact with, as you say, in this lifetime on a bigger scale, they're much more like family. It's like, I know I'm talking a lot, but it's like you meet somebody and you know that you know them. You can be far more open, and you know, have a conversation with them about all this stuff much more than you can with your blood family.
Yeah, true. I like to refer to it as they're already in your potential, right? When you're born in this part of your potential, this comfort zone, this part of the belief system of the people that brought you up. The system keeps you here, but your potential is this. So when you wake up, you start to open your potential, and you start to open up, and you think, oh, I'm becoming a different person. Oh, I'm doing all this new stuff. Oh, I'm meeting new people. Oh, I'm meeting new places. But it's not new. It was already there in your potential. Yeah. It was already there in your blueprint. We agreed many lives ago, maybe, to meet each other here, you know. And it's when you follow your destiny, and you open your potential, and you break out of your comfort zone, you meet people that you know better than the people you know since childhood in this life, because you go back so long. Same with places.
Yeah, and I love that metaphor that you just you know, you not shared that with me before, but I like it very much, because I think that's a really good way of explaining it. And
you're not becoming someone else.
Sorry?
You're not becoming somewhere else. You're becoming more of yourself.
You're becoming more of who you are. That's it. That's exactly that's exactly what we're doing. You know, as you know, in my course, in my teaching, what I'm doing is I'm helping people to empower themselves, which is the same thing. You know, it's like, you empower, you become, the vessel for your own energy, and that just gets bigger and bigger. And the potential is, as you say, you start there, and then you open up. But as you grow, the potential doesn't get smaller; it gets greater. Just like when we met, there was a potential for us to connect, and we did for a while, and then that connection, it was still there, but geographically it was distant. And then
when we went to Vietnam,
but then you came back. You came back, and you invited me to come and teach as part of Bridgman, and that opened up the potential for our collaboration in a bigger way, which we're seeing now, and we're both enjoying.
Yeah.
And it's bringing a lot of people into their own empowerment.
Yeah, that's true too, as well. Yes. So, but it is an important insight for those who are in the process of awakening, and maybe a story. This story, I don't know if I've shared this one with you, but a couple of years ago, I have some really old friends left, and a group of we are a group of 6.
Mm-hmm.
I know these guys from very young, and we still get along very well. And we meet a couple of times a year. We were here in the mountains, Terra Nova, in the Pyrenees, hiking. And a couple of years ago, I asked one of them. I said, before I realized this myself, I said to him, "Wow, do you don't you think I changed a lot? I used to be in my life. I had this. I used to be in construction. I used to be this and that. I lost 20 kilos of weight. I became a completely different person. Don't you think? How do you see it? You've known me from very young. How do you see my huge transformation?" And he said, "Robert, you didn't change." And I said, "What do you mean you didn't change?" He said, "You became who you were when you were a child." And he said, I was when you left off and went into business when in your 20s, he said, I didn't understand because it's not you. You wanted to be a forest keeper when you grew up, and you were always in nature. And he said, I did not understand. And you grew into a person that I didn't know anymore. And now you're back, and I see the Robert again that I knew from very, very early on. And that was such a profound insight for me. And I thought, yeah, fuck, he's right. I did not change. I became more of me and who I was destined to be in this life.
Yeah, that's a nice story. You've not shared that with me before, but I like that. I don't have a similar story to tell you, except what I can do is, again, this is another long story which we're probably not going to get into now. But I changed my name because I got the name Altazar in meditation, and it's somebody doused and said, "Oh yeah, you've had that name at least twice before." So it came to me in meditation, and I made it my legal name. And when I did that, I changed it on my driving license and my passport, and I had to go to an old friend to get a signature. It was an old girlfriend who was who was a teacher, responsible person, could make the signature. And she said, "Oh yeah," she said, "I never thought that was your real name anyway. You're much more. This feels much better." So it's like, so.
Do you keep your old name secret?
No, there are still one or two people that use it, but it's like I don't relate to it anymore. So I can tell you, it's Edward. It's not a big secret. And that's what my old girlfriend said. She said, I never thought you were Edward anyway.
I'm now thinking, like, okay, let's say you were Edward and I
Yeah.
was speaking to Edward Rossiter now, it would be completely different. I mean,
No.
it's Edward or Altazar. It's a
Yeah.
completely different energy to it. No.
But it was a big stretch for me to actually make that change. It was, because it's like, oh, how can I, it's pretentious. How can I possibly do that?
Yeah.
But I got many messages just saying, you've got to do it. You've got to do it. Just like you got the message, fall back. Is there anyone behind me? Just and this happens so much in the process. It's like, and you've seen, often I'll be in a workshop and I'll be leading a workshop, and I'll get this message: oh, go to this person, go to that person, go and stand here, go and stand there. Put your hands here, put your hand, and I'll risk it. No, 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 and I just keep getting that message. And I go, okay, and I do it, and it's always the right thing.
But it's about listening, and this is also an important aspect of awakening. We are being guided, and we are being helped, and we are being supported. And all we have to do is trust and learn to listen to the right voices, because there's many voices that that want to guide us into a different way, in a different direction. But learn to listen to the right voices is a very important aspect of awakening.
Yeah, and that's a matter of trial and error. We do have to make the mistakes, and I know we'll talk about mistakes in another one of these podcasts. But it's so important that you make a few mistakes and learn from them, because otherwise, if you don't learn from your mistakes, you just keep making them, and you give energy. It drains your energy into a different, it just kind of doesn't serve the awakening process in you or in anybody else. But as you say, there are many voices, and not all of them are as helpful as we would like to think. And even if they do seem helpful at the beginning, it's a bit like, when you go to the market and, something looks good on the market stall and the market trader is saying, oh yeah, this is the best there is. And it's a man that you trust or a pretty lady that you like the look of, and you go, oh yes, and you just get sucked in. And then you get the thing home and you think, Jesus, this is a piece of shit, but you've got to make those mistakes.
Yeah, you got to make mistakes, and don't be afraid of it, and work on your intuition. Train the intuition. Yeah, it's important. And learn to listen is intuition, and learn to recognize the voices in your head. And as we'll be talking about transformation in other parts of these talks, but it's also important, as you clear up and you clear up the entities in you, and you clear up the. This is Donna. Hello, Donna.
Cat. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And you clear up entities that are talking to you, and you close the holes that dark voices are using to enter your system. It becomes easier. It becomes easier along the way to listen to the right voices, because they are the only ones left at a certain point. But I did have voices I thought were good voices, but they turned out years later they were not. They were good for bad, dark voices who disguised themselves as as positive, as guides.
Yes.
And it's a process. You had that too, and we talked about it over the years. And we also, like many people know, we stopped working with, for example, archangel energies or arisen master energies, because of who are you, who are they, and what are they connected to, and in which
Mhm.
reality are they, and
Yeah.
so. But in the past, I know when I met you, you worked a lot with those energies,
Yes.
and now it's there. You kick them all out.
Well, it's not so much that I kick them out, but um, I don't work with them anymore. You know, not overtly. And what I'm very careful about now is with the energies that I do uh, invite and work with, is I invite only those energies, intelligences, consciousnesses that are aligned with, again, I'm going to use this word, with the Pleroma of Original Source. Only those energies that are aligned with Original Source and know me through a connection of pure love. That's all I'm wanting to do, and so that's my intent.
Yeah, same here. And ever since I started doing that, it's pure, because you
Well,
make sure you always work with the highest of good.
it's
Maybe it's good to explain a little bit. Pleroma is a work from the Gnostic tradition, and it basically, in the Gnostic tradition, you have the original creator,
mhm,
and it expresses itself in the Father, the Mother, and the Son, the Christ energy, and and that expresses itself in the Pleroma, the
yeah.
original light of
It's
Source.
the fullness. It's the fullness of everything. It's all there is. It's
Yes,
that
and
light. It's
it's
that
not the
original light.
same as the God from the Bible, because maybe we can elaborate on that a little bit in a later one of these sessions. What we can say now is the God of the Bible, or the God of the Quran, or the God of the Jewish religion. They're all the same entity. We believe, and that's the entity that is upholding this matrix that we're all in. That's not the entity that we refer to when we refer to the creator, or the divine intelligence, or the pleroma, or source. And but we will talk about that later, because it's a bit too much, maybe.
It's a bit too much now. What I would say about it is um, certainly in the Bible in English, um, there there are inconsistencies. So sometimes, you know, the God of the Bible is not the Pleroma of Original Source, and sometimes it is a reference to the
Yeah,
creator of all there is, you know. And so uh, that confusion where the two get kind of mixed up together, that's
yeah,
that's where it's possible just for this, you know, this what we're talking about, the, you know, the archangel energies that we don't call these days. It's where they get disguised as something they're not. You know, they're standing in place and saying, well, you know, I'm I'm number one, and maybe who's behind them? You know, it's like, so it's, you know,
well,
this
if
is a huge
if you
subject.
work with archangels connected to original source, it's a different story again. But let's
Yeah,
not go too deep in the
we won't go. Yeah,
for
let's leave that for another time.
topic. We're talking about awakening, and we've covered a lot already about what happens, the crisis, the initiation, the increasing of consciousness, letting go of low frequency and building up a higher frequency through practice. uh, many different practices, meditation to mantras to sounds to, to there's so much, so the possibilities are limitless.
Hmm.
And transformation of the darkness in your system, healing, closing the system, and listening to the voices that guide you, and dare to make mistakes, um, in that process. And it will help. It will I think maybe this wraps it up a bit, because many people who wake up, they want to know what their soul's purpose is, why they are here, what their mission is in life, and they start to search and they don't find it and they get disappointed. And I like to use the example of Walter. You know Walter, who was living at Terra Nova as a gardener?
Gardener, yes.
He lived here for 13 months. Beautiful soul. Love him to death. Good friend of mine now after these 13 months. And Walter, when he came here, he still had a lot of work to do. And he was on the path. He did a lot of things very, very well. And but there was still a lot of childhood trauma. There was still a lot of karmic trauma. There was, and I don't want to go into the details of that, but there was a lot to clear. And living here, and we have our daily meditation sessions. We have teachers. When you come here, you do sessions with the team. I do sessions with the team. They participate in transformational retreats here. So all that trauma got cleared up, and all that karma got balanced out, and he started to heal. And in that process, his mission became clearer and clearer and clearer, until one day he said, Robert, I've been here for 13 months. I'm going back to Holland because I know my mission. And now he's got a piece of land in the north of Holland, in Drenthe. And he's been doing a lot of massages here, giving a lot of massages here. He's been practicing his coach skills here, and he's doing retreats. He has a piece of land where he can demonstrate his vegan lifestyle. He's taking people into the garden. He's doing coaching. He's doing massages, very deep energy massages, which I can recommend anyone. And he's living his purpose. He is a long way to go, just like all of us. But that's the process. And if you trust the process, you don't have to search for anything. You don't have to set goals, or you just have to open up, listen to the voices, increase your vibration, transform the darkness, and it will unfold.
I think it's worth saying that setting goals can be useful. I mean, and why it's useful is because you set a goal from what you think you know and what you think you want, and it starts you on the journey. But this is just like any journey. You get down the road a little way and you can see a lot more than you could see when you started. And so the goal starts to shift and you think, oh no, that looks much more interesting over there. So the path starts to shift and you go in a different way. And this is part of the discovery process.
Agree. And I always like to say, if you set goals, don't attach to the outcome. Just, they give you a direction, and that's it. You don't necessarily have to reach them, and they will send you. They will say, and though there are distractions and diversions on the path.
Yes, there are.
I think this is a very important one too. You set a goal from your mind, and suddenly you find yourself on a how do you call that? Not the main path, but
a tangent. I think I'll call that. I would call that. You find you go off at a tangent. Yes, and that generally happens if you stay stuck on material goals. So it's like you decide that you want a Ferrari or something, and okay, yes, of course you can manifest a Ferrari, but it's like, what have you got to do? What have you got to sacrifice of yourself to get there? And yes, I've got the Ferrari. What else have I got? Well, maybe I've got some money and I've got a big house and all that. But what have you really got? In your soul, has it fed your soul? But but it could be that it is your life purpose to have a Ferrari. It could be that, but the whole thing is that attachment process, because You can easily be distracted. And if you're focused totally on the material, you're actually going to damage yourself. That's my opinion.
Yeah, beautiful. There's much more we can say about awakening. Maybe it's important to mention at least the heart, because it all starts at the heart, the opening of the heart, the opening of the physical heart, but also the opening of the heart chakra. Metta Bhavana, by the way, is a very, very good practice to do so. But I think because if we keep talking, this is going to be a very, 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 very long.
Yeah, I can see that.
For people to. Yeah, so maybe it's a good one to stop this now. And we have 6 of these talks. This is just number 1. So we'll continue talking in the next few weeks and continue recording our talks and take people all the way from awakening into the exploration process, the matrix, understanding the matrix, beyond the matrix, co-creating a new reality and living your purpose. And I'm already having a lot of fun doing this with you. This was a good idea.
Yeah, it's a good idea. Yeah. Okay.
All right. So that concludes number 1.
Number 1, and I look forward to the next one. Okay.
For watching. Yeah, me too. Thank you very much. So this is one of 6 talks that Altazar and I are having, and we're looking forward to see you again or hear you again in our next talk.